Good afternoon. I'll start with an anecdotal tale of one of the proudest moments in my career. My hand trembled as my finger hovered over the publish button. This was the day, and the moment was here. All the hours, all the days, all the months, all the nights, the endless nights of work, of writing, of rewriting, of reading, rewriting, rereading, rewriting, editing, re-editing, rewriting, editing again, proofing, editing one more time, proofing. Oh no, editing one more time, and one final proof. And we're still not completely 100% ready. But today is the day. And we upload my client's book, and I click publish. And she is now a published author. Madam Toastmaster, welcome. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters and our esteemed guest. It's wonderful to see you here today. Today, I'm going to encourage you to tell your story. We all have stories in us. Most of us are afraid to tell our story. But what if we did? Those are the three areas I'm going to go over with you today. We all have a story. Most of us are afraid to tell our story. But what if we did? When I think back to my early preteen, early teen life, I'd say it wasn't very exciting. It was pretty typical. Nothing much to say, in my opinion. But when I tell people little tiny segments of my life, things like, well, when I was 15, I was sent off to visit my father in Arizona. I won't tell you why. That's a whole other story. When I got back, I had left a mother who was just getting divorced, a couple of teenage brothers who were, your typical teenage brothers, typical trouble that you get into. And I came back to my entire family on cocaine. My first night home, my mother offered me a line. When I tell that, which I rarely do, people tell me, you should write a book. And it makes me think, really? Should I write that book? Has anyone ever told that to you? You should write a book. Raise your hand if any of you have ever had someone say, you should write a book. Okay, a couple of hands. How about this? Raise your hand if anyone has ever said to you after you have told them something about your life or anything, wow, what a story. Has anyone ever said that to you? Wow, what a story. Yeah. So most of us do have a story. And we may imagine that our life isn't all that interesting, when in fact, it's full of wonder. Our life is full of wonder. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, every minute in that day adds up to minutes that no one else is experiencing quite the way that we are. We experience our own day, even if you spend it right next to someone next to you, right next to them, and you're both experiencing the same day. Neither one is experiencing it the same way. Now, if you may imagine that your life is ordinary, and maybe it is. In fact, for most of us, our lives are ordinary. Does that make it any less important or any less remarkable than, say, Betty White? You may also have already told your story. How many of you, and I know several of you can raise your hand, how many of you have written a book? Yeah. How many of you have published a book? Yeah, you got some hands up. So for those of us who've already written a book, and I'm going to say this, how many of you have ever written an article? Ah, how many of you have ever written a Facebook post or Twitter or whatever is your jam, right? So all of us have written and all of us have published in one form or another. An email is a form of publishing. Did you know that? Yeah. There are people who do email marketing and they call it publishing. I published my latest email. Oh, I published my. So all these things that we do is a form of publishing. Have you written the one you want to share with the world? And if so, have you written the next one that you want to share with the world? Because really, why stop at one? So I'll go back through those 3 points. We all have a story, and we'll start with that one. We do all have a story. It might be your expertise. So now this this statistic was very, very difficult to find. You can't find it almost anywhere. But back in 2014, Michael Parrish Dudell, contributor at Forbes magazine, wrote that 11,000 business books are published every year. So this is back in 2014. This is also traditional publishing. So it's not just publishing on Amazon or through an independent publisher. This is traditional. I can only imagine what that might be now, because now with the trend, if you include untraditional publishing, Amazon, InstaSpark, or whatever it's called, there's another one. It's thousands of people that are publishing every year, which adds up to more than thousands every month. If you have a job, a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a message, if you're a coach, if you have something that you're teaching to the world in any way, a book is your business card. And it's the best business card you could ever have, because it does a couple of things for you. It introduces you as someone who has taken the time to really put down your expertise into a very easily consumable format, hopefully, when done well. But you almost can't mess it up, because you spent the time to do it. So it immediately brands you as an expert. It also tells other people that you're the one that they want to go to. It's like when Arnie's book comes out and he's getting ready to publish. Here. Book about communication. A book that helps couples get along better. Families get along better. In-laws get along better. A book you can use the expertise within it to get along better with your adult children, even those living in the house. Oof. And so when I think about, what kind of communication book might I buy? Well, Arnie wrote the book on it. So it gives you that. I wrote the book on it. You would never say that, but your colleagues would. Oh, she wrote the book on it. Oh, Annette wrote the book on health. Read it. It's really good. Now, it also might be about your experience. Whether you take a look at a fictional book like Little House on the Prairie, the whole series, which, if you do a little research, you know that Paul may not have quite been as sweet as Laura portrayed him. He might have, but maybe not quite as much. So there's, some fictional characters, some fictional feelings and motivation in that. You take that compared to a full memoir, hard-hitting style book. It's still about your experience. So if you've had any experience in your whole life ever, you've got a book. Even one little experience. And then it also might be your secrets exposed, like the story I shared with you at the beginning of this speech, which is a little embarrassing, a little nerve-wracking. All of you know me just a tiny bit more than you thought you ever did. And that's scary, right? That's scary to let people in. Which brings us to that second point of most of us are afraid to share our story. Because, really, no one ever felt like you're going through something and you're just like, no one's going to get this. No one's going to understand this. Yeah. And it's funny because we hear songs about that, like, I'm a freak, I'm this, no one gets me, no one's been there. And what's funny is we all have in a different way, just like that earlier, that day that we're all spending together, sharing a slightly different perspective on it. It's the same thing with the troubles that we share. But we do feel like no one will understand. We also feel like people might laugh or make fun of us. How many of you have ever felt embarrassed to say something because you're afraid someone might laugh at you or make fun of you? I sure have. Definitely. A million times over. And worse, the last part is people will know who you really are. When you write, even if you're writing fiction, a part of you becomes that story. A part of you is shown through that story. And so even with a complete fiction, we can see who the author is. And that can be extremely terrifying. Gut-wrenchingly terrifying. You could just say, no way ever. I encourage you, though, as we move into our last point, to ask yourself, but what if we did? Right? What if we did tell our story in the face of fear? There's a saying that beauty is one of the most valued aspect in most cultures. The saying continues on, though. It doesn't just mention beauty. It mentions bravery and beauty, courage and beauty. So yeah, it can be super scary, super scary to tell our story. And maybe we're not all that beautiful. I have a wonderful lady, Denise Duffield Thomas, that I follow on all the Instas and the Grams and the Ticks and the Talks and the tweets. And she's a money guru lady, but don't let that thwart you. She says something that's really, really, really fantastic. She's talking about how women in particular have a hard time accepting money for their work. She gives an example of, she brings a man up and he hands her $1. She's holding the dollar, and she asks him, like, just tell me to pay you. And he goes, okay, pay me. It's $1. Okay, here you go. So that's it. Then she says, here's how a woman does it. Get the $1. And the woman says, well, I want you to pay me. But hold on. First, I need to, I think I might need to change the color of the font on my website first, and then you can pay me. And I might need to change, okay, wait, hold on. But it might not, I know it's worth a lot, but but is it really? And I might need to lose 10 pounds. She literally says, I might need to lose some weight before I can sell this item. So we're not really talking about selling the item, but we can get so scared of not being good enough. But just by being brave, you're in that category. Whether you're beautiful, which I think we all are, or whether you don't think you are. If you're brave enough to step out there, you're in that category. The other point is that there is not one path. So how many of you are thinking, but I can't write? No way, I don't want to write. Okay, not many of you. I know our club is a lot of writers. But there are a few of us who just think like, nope, I can't do it. I can't write. I don't want to. I don't have the time. And so if you can't write, hire someone who can. Or if you can't write, paint your story. Yeah? Dance your story. Sit down in front of the fireplace and tell your grandkids your story. Tell them about how you came across the country. Tell them about how you started your first business or how you got your first job. Tell them how you didn't get accepted to college or that you did get accepted to college or that you didn't even go because it wasn't an option. Let your story live on. And then the last point of it is be that one voice. We all think we're incredibly alone sometimes. And chances are, you are. But what we don't realize and what we hardly ever see is the stream of people that flow alongside us and under us and through us and around us. And they are everywhere. And some of them are looking right at us and they're taking what we do as inspiration, whether we like or know it or not. I know a long time ago, I posted something on Facebook about failing yet another diet, as you can tell. Failing yet. And I got a message from somebody, a friend, and she said, Carrie, I love that you post that because it's such an inspiration. You talk about your failure with your business, your successes with your business, the good things that are happening in your life and the horrible things. And it inspires me to keep going because sometimes I don't feel like I can. And that was the day that I stopped being as terrified, I think, to tell my stories. And that if we just are that one voice, we can change the world. When Barry Manilow headlined for the Nobel Peace Prize concert on November 12th in Oslo, he told the audience that he wrote that song in a dream. And of this song, he said, it reminds us that if one person stands up for what he believes in, the rest will follow. That song was One Voice. Sure, you've all heard it. It was one voice singing in the darkness. All it takes is one voice singing so they'll hear what's on your mind. And when you look around, you'll find there's more than one voice singing in the darkness, joining with your one voice. Each and every note, another octave, hands are joined and fears unlocked. If only one voice would start it on its own. We need that one voice facing the unknown. And then that one voice would never be alone. It takes that one voice. Where is your story? And are you ready to tell it? And if not now, I ask you, when? Madam Toastmaster.